Call to order. Before you sit down, Nancy. Oh, you are seated. If you're able to stand, please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good, thank you. Now have the roll taken by Francine.
Thank you. Please say here present when I call your name. Commissioner Allen.
Present.
Commissioner Fotheringham.
Here.
Commissioner Gorbach.
Present.
Commissioner Grimm.
Present.
Commissioner Healy. Commissioner Kopaz is absent. Commissioner Loomis is absent. Commissioner Norkin.
Here.
And Commissioner Shantas. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners and our audience and television land for joining us today. Thank you. This is the time now we'd invite members of the public to state their concerns about senior-related issues in our city or to present items for commissioners' consideration. Speakers will have 3 minutes. Please come to the podium, state your name, and the city and you reside. We have one from Bob Fong, Newbury Park. Bob, if you would please step to the podium. And is it on? Yeah, it is on.
My name's Bob Fong from Newbury Park, and I'm a recent member, or a newer member of the transportation team. And Chairperson Jane Messier couldn't make it today, so she asked me to just pass on a few pieces of information. One was at the transportation planning workshop. It's going to be held on May 21st at 12:30 p.m. And there should be some advertisement out on the Acorn and the Gazette, etc. And that she also welcomes any public comments and issues regarding transportation to the and have it forwarded to the team, or come to a team meeting that happens every third Thursday of every month here at the Civic Arts Paula. It's right next door. And that's all I wanted to say.
Before you run away, Bob, what was the date and location?
The Transportation Planning Workshop will be held at the Global Center on the 21st of May.
That is the 21st. That is a
Wednesday.
Okay. All right, and that starts at 12:30 then. Okay.
Right, and the transportation team meetings occur every third Thursday of every month.
Yep. Yep. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob, for joining the committee too. I appreciate it, and you're jumping right in there. I thank you. Thank you so much. This time there are no other public comments requested. We still problems with the website? Yeah, let's do it. All right, yesterday, as wonderful as the city we live in, and with all the progressive attitudes that we have here, we are looking through 2064 what to do to make us even a more friendly community, senior or otherwise. So there was 5 different committee meetings. I think the preponderance of us were at the senior, but if there was anybody else, either from the audience here, or I don't know, does anybody else want to say anything about what we saw or what we did last night? You got any thoughts? Go ahead.
This was the second of the visioning meetings that I have attended. Both of them are under the community group, which is being held at the library, in the community room at the library. They're being run by Claudia de la Peña. And yesterday was directly, these are all things that affect the community, was about senior activities and what we need. And we had I would say 50 people there. I mean, we had a very good turnout. There are a lot of us that are seniors and that are very interested in the community. I think that the next meeting is going to be, Francine, I think this is right, June 3rd, and it is going to involve all the different nonprofits, and there are approximately 400 nonprofit agencies in Thousand Oaks that provide services for our public, and if you don't know about them, you can't avail yourself. So I would certainly urge people to put, it's a Tuesday, be 6 to 8 o'clock. It's in the community service room, and again, it's going to be on the nonprofits in our community. You'll learn something about what is available for us and hopefully how everything can work together for you. And these meetings have been extremely valuable for those of us who've attended the first two. So I'd urge everybody to put that Tuesday, June 3rd on your calendar, 6 to 8 o'clock.
All right, Karen?
I was at the meeting also last night on senior concerns that met at the library with Nancy and the rest of the commission. And I would just like to add that this really is a wonderful example of the city reaching out into the community and into the senior community in particular to hear our concerns and listen to our ideas and to be innovative and receptive. And I've been to the last two meetings. They've both been excellent. So if you are listening out there and considering whether or not to go, please go. I think you will enjoy it. You'll enjoy talking to other members of the community as well as interacting with people in city government, and it's a very, very good experience. And you don't have to feel that because you didn't attend one or two of the first ones that you can't go to the next one. Absolutely can go to the next one. Or if attending public meetings is just not your thing, you can go online and give input. City of Thousand Oaks, and what is the special mind mixer? On the city's homepage, look for the word Mind Mixer, and it's a very, very easy thing to do. So we look forward, everyone looks forward to getting your input. Thank you, Dave.
Very nice. Thanks, Nance and Karen. Anybody else? No, it was quite I felt stimulated, too, from the standpoint that there are thoughts, there are people who are looking beyond this next 6 months or so about what's going to happen in this community. As I said earlier, this is a wonderful community, and it's hard to sometimes, I won't say a perfection, but hard to really project beyond how much better we could make life living here. But we are looking into questions along that. And there are other different, I can't remember offhand, but there are 4 other committees that are being sponsored by the other council members. And I'd ask any of you who want to get more involved or just to frequent, please go to the website. And again, Mind Mixer, as well as there's a special heading for 2064. All right. Anything else? All right, we'll let that fall silent for now. Next, we've got something a little different from the standpoint that we've got a motion that we want to develop, a discussion, and then possibly a motion to be presented by Nancy Healy. The recommendation is to direct staff to draft report from Council on Aging requesting city fund $10,000 for the Caneo Senior Volunteer Program, CSVP, and direct the chair to sign and present to City Council. Nancy, I'll put this in your hands now.
Can I do it from here, or would it be better if I... Right here? Oh, yay, great. Terrific. I got it on. Okay. As Commissioner Grimm said, I'm here today to bring before the Council on Aging a request to direct the staff to draft a report from this body, from Council on Aging, requesting city funding of $10,000 for 1 year, for this year, for the Caneo Senior Volunteer Program, now known as CSVP. And we would also like to direct Chair Grimm to sign and present to City Council. What I'd like to do first is just to give a background, and probably a lot of you already are very familiar with this program, but I first would like to tell you something about the facts about the program so that you can know why we're asking for this money for this valuable program. To give you just a little background, you may have known, if you've been active for a long time, Canale Senior Volunteer Program used to be called Retired Senior Volunteer Program, RSVP, which was easier to remember for most of us. But anyway, RSVP and CSVP now has been serving the Canale Valley for over 40 years. That's a long time here. It was called RSVP until last year, and it was partially funded by a federal RSVP grant. It's a federal program. The federal grant program changed and had new requirements that would have forced our local program to eliminate a significant number of opportunities that we currently have for volunteers, including positions with the police department, volunteers in policing, that type of thing, hospitals, the theater. These would no longer have been able to be part of the whole program, which is a problem. We have a lot of volunteers. 45% of the Canale Senior Volunteers Program, the budget is $129,000. But the problem is 45% of that came from the RSVP grant. So when the grant we were no longer using the grant, they lost that money, and it was $58,000, which is a sizable amount in a $129,000 budget. In 2013, just to give you a little idea of the breadth of this program and what it does, not just for the participants, which is huge, but what it does for the community. In 2013, 1 year, more than 1,000 volunteers worked more than 200,000 hours throughout the Canale Valley. The dollar value, and this is estimated at only $12,000 an hour, $12 an hour, and the total value dollar-wise would be $2.4 million worth of volunteer hours figured at a low rate in 1 year, in 2013. CSVP, Canale Senior Volunteer Program, has their own advisory board. They have been working on fundraising projects to make up for some of this loss of funding. But $58,000 is a lot nowadays. They had a holiday appeal letter catalog where letters were sent to people in the community about fundraising. On April 29th, there was a fundraiser at the Lazy Dog where they gave a percentage to CSVP. May 1, they're doing a bridge tournament. May 17th, Canale Players Theater performance is going to be for them. Profit will be some going to them. They've always had a boutique in the Global Center, the CSVP boutique, and they are, of course, continuing with that for money. These activities will continue. The concern for right now is, though, that the money needs are more immediate, and so it's a $58,000 loss. Just a little bit now. That's what it does for the community. It's huge because now, with I think everybody realizes we've had a lot of state and government cutbacks on things, and many times our volunteers help with these things. I want to just mention why this was so important to me personally and to a lot of other seniors personally. I am a total type A personality, and I had worked in a job with 10-hour, 12-hour days every day. Really thought, what am I ever going to do when I'm retired? I mean, I'm not going to want to sit home with my husband. And my husband thought, I'm not hoping she's not going to sit home with me either, you know. So anyway, I thought, what am I going to do? So I had gone over to see Cindy Powers, who was then the RSVP program, and said, these are some of the things that I have done. I have this kind of experience and that kind. And so she went through so many opportunities. And she said, what sounds good? And right away, there were so many, but I knew I wanted to be a long-term care ombudsman, where we go visit people in nursing homes and assisted living facilities. It's a federally state-mandated program under the Older Americans Act, and I knew that was me. I just knew it. And Corky Grimm is here with me, and she is one also. And there are some people who would just hate this job, but if they didn't like that, there were so many things of all different kinds, complex jobs, simple jobs, all available. So I started out with ombudsman 6 years ago. And then Cindy said to me, you should really try out for Council on Aging. And I said, oh, okay. And then I did. That was 5 years ago. So, and I know so many people in this community that have at a stage where they stopped working in a job where they contributed a lot, said, what the heck am I going to do? This community, this service has given them a whole new life. This is one of probably the best time in my life and ease and enjoyment of what I do. But I wouldn't have had this if I hadn't had the support and the opportunities afforded to me by the Caneo Senior Volunteer Program. I mean, it's really, really important. And again, as I said, and my husband thanks you all for them for all the hours I've spent away from the house, So, and again, these volunteer hours that we put in, and we have in this community, look around us, the most talented group of volunteers ever, people from every walk of life who are willing to spend their time and really can contribute. But so many of our nonprofits and all have lost funding. Our state agencies and county agencies have lost funding. Social workers have been let go. So when we have these voids, any time that a volunteer can step up and at least fill the hole a little bit, it's huge. It is so important to keep down any loss of community services, and particularly to seniors. I mean, we really do need these services to be available. Okay, thank you, Commissioners, for your consideration and audience for listening. And I request that you approve this recommendation for a $10,000 one-year funding to be given to the Caneo Senior Volunteer Program. Thanks for your time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Nancy, for bringing it to our attention. Any questions, comments from the dais?
Well, Nancy, I'm really miffed that you valued my time at only $12 an hour in a public meeting. But,
I said I said you were $13.50. I tried to bring it on. Yes, I knew that. Yes.
And it's my understanding that we're not requesting money that would come out of a source that would take it away from any other senior service that the city now provides, and so we're not competing with ourselves.
It comes out, and maybe can I address this with you as a city representative, because that's one of those things that I don't know the answer, but I will find out, which is the best thing to do. Yes.
It's my understanding from Commissioner Healy that she's requesting that we ask for an additional appropriation from City Council from the general fund to fund the CSVP program. And this would be a one-year appropriation.
1 year only. It does not say that if anybody has the report, but it is for 1 year only.
Okay.
And they have been given some funding by the Global Commission. Also did that step forward and gave them a $10,000 1-year help to get through while they're trying to get over this $58,000 loss. Okay. Mr. Fotheringham, any other questions?
No.
Okay. I know you made $13, so.
All right. Enough minimum wage discussion. No other questions then? Okay. You now get to meet the real Chairman Jim, because we're opening it up for public comments. Our former and a longtime friend, former lead commissioner here, Jim Sheridan. Jim?
Thank you very much, David. Thank you. Thank you. Nancy, thank you for everything. You said most of everything I was going to say. I'm here in support of this CSVP problem, this temporary $58,000 shortfall. You know, I'm preaching to the choir if I suggest to you that you need to hear about the value that this program brings, the hundreds and thousands of hours, the millions of dollars, and those hours that are spent go everywhere in this community. They virtually impact every entity from the nonprofits in the organization to the city itself, certainly to the Global Center and to the Parks District. What they do touches every single one of us. You also mentioned the fundraising they're doing to overcome this shortfall and how big a part of this shortfall is to their annual budget. All of those things are very critical. And you also mentioned that along those lines, we decided that the Global Commission would look at this problem and step in and completely. We've never done anything remotely like this before, but unanimously voted to give $10,000 to the program. And $10,000, pardon me, to the Commission is a lot of money considering our fairly limited capital. But our mission statement at the center is a pretty simple one. Our purpose is to enrich the lives of the senior population. We couldn't think of a better way to do that than to support this program. But above and beyond all the dollars and the hours and all that sort of thing, there's a, what do I call it? Thousand Oaks has been noted for years nationally as for their volunteers. We volunteer at a very high percentage. It's part of who we are. It's part of our identity. It's a treasure basically worth holding on to. It's one of the things that makes this particular community incredibly peaceful and enjoyable to live in. But above and beyond the numbers and the dollars, how many times from this very room have we made the statement that people who volunteer live longer, happier, healthier lives? Probably 100 times from this very room. And we all believe that because we've experienced it. We know what we're talking about there. So this is one of the gifts that CVSC offers anybody who wants it, a longer, healthier, happier life. But it goes a little bit beyond that, particularly for me who've experienced this. CVSC saves lives. It gets people off the couch, out the door, and re-involved in their life. And guys, we can't do better work than that. I really appreciate, I think it says wonderful things about the Council on Aging that you're addressing this issue, and I hope for a good outcome, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jim. Always glad to have you come here and bring us up to date on things, and appreciate your support. All right. At this time, I would like to call for a motion. Go ahead and make the motion, Nancy.
I move that Council on Aging vote to direct staff to draft a report from the Council on Aging requesting city funding of $10,000 for the Caneo Senior Volunteer Program, CSVP, and direct Chair Graham to sign and present to City Council. Thank you.
Very good. Any discussion on the motion? All clear to the left, all clear to the right. At this time, I would like to call for a vote. Please say yes or no, and we will start with Harry and individually respond.
I vote yes.
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 I couldn't hear you, Marty.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Motion passes 7-0. Commissioner Kopaz is absent and Commissioner Loomis are absent. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. Thank you very much, folks. Thank you. All right, item 7 on the agenda is liaison reports. In addition to being an advisory body to City Council, the Council of Aging also acts as liaisons of various senior organizations. We'll have Mike McAdams describe what's going on with this Caneo Senior and Volunteer programs. Mike?
Good afternoon. Thank you for giving me a couple moments of your time. I'm going to touch base on not only the volunteer program, but a couple of the happenings at the Global Center as well. We'll start with the volunteer program because you guys, since it's a hot topic in your meeting today. So under the volunteer program, the Caneo Players program that Nancy mentioned is a program that's coming up on Saturday, May 17th, and it will be at the Caneo Players Theater. There's going to be a reception prior to a show. The Los Robles Hills Winery is going to be bringing in wine and cheese and chocolates and doing a little reception beforehand, followed by a 3:30 performance of Picasso at the Lapin, I'm going to say this wrong, Aguile. So that's $25 per ticket. They are on sale currently at the front desk at Goebel Center. You can come on by and stop in and get those tickets anytime. That's going to be a great program and a great fundraiser for the volunteer program as well. Another thing that they're going to be doing, and this is another collaboration, they're trying to reach out and join other organizations. They have a group called Camp Helping Hands, which is for children ages 6 to 14, and it's all about getting the children inspired to volunteer. So they're bringing 60 of these children to meet with our weekly teddy bear group that makes the teddy bears for the children in the hospitals, and they're going to teach the children every step along the way how to cut the patterns, how to sew the teddy bears, how to stuff the teddy bears, how to draw the faces, all the way through actually taking their finished product from the day and going to the hospital and donating them to the children's wards. So that's another a big program that they are getting involved in and expanding their programming. So, and I just say, okay. And I'll talk about Goebel after Dave calls for Goebel.
All right, well then continue, Mike, with Goebel.
Excellent. Right into Goebel. A couple of big things. Something mentioned already from your transportation committee. The Senior Auto Options Program is on Wednesday, May 21st. It's going to be at 12:30. There are limited seats left, so if people want to sign up, they should call our front desk and get on that list really quick. A couple other things we have coming up also on the 21st is our next in the series of Meet Me at the Movies. We'll be showing The Secret Life of Walter Mitty at 3:15. That's free to the public, so just come on in and watch the movie in the afternoon. Also, the other thing we're doing is the Goebel Senior Games and Goals program, which is a collaboration with, and I got to get my flyer here so I get all this information right. It's collaboration with the Senior Action Master Plan Health Team, Caneo Rec and Park District, and the Reserve of Thousand Oaks. And it's basically going to be a senior game. So we're going to have 6 different activities. They're going to play horseshoes, do Wii bowling, they're going to play miniature golf, table tennis, and billiards. And then they're going to wrap everything up with a 1K walk, followed by a free barbecue provided by the Kiwanis. That is going to be on Wednesday, May 28th from 10 a.m. until noon. And it'll be right there at Goebel Center. Our activities will all be either outside on the back patio or in our horseshoe pits out there. The 1K will take the loop through the park, the Canal Creek North Park right behind us, and then come back to the patio for a great barbecue. And those tickets are free, and people can sign up for that at our front desk also. Thank you.
Okie doke. Thank you, Mike, for keeping us up to date on some of those activities. All right, item 9 is any special announcements, special event?
Item 8.
Oh, geez, pardon me. I skipped a step. All right, pardon me, Karen.
That's okay.
Item 8.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And I am pleased to report that on April 29th, Commissioners Grimm and Shentus and I met to interview the candidates for the Senior of the Year Award. And ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you, it was a humbling experience for me to be in the presence of these folks who have given so much to the community. So that event, the Senior of the Year banquet, will be held on Thursday evening, June 5th at 5:30. Do we know if there are still tickets available? Yes, there are still tickets available, and you can purchase those for $6 a ticket at the front desk of the Goebel Center. And it's going to be a terrific evening, and we look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you.
What was sort of the number of candidates we had? And
there were a few candidates who, for various reasons having to do with travel, could not make the interview. We ended up interviewing 4 individuals and 2 couples.
Couples?
Yes, sir. And it was wonderful. I want to interview it again next year.
Well, great. Thanks for your participation. All right. Anything else on Senior of the Year, Nance?
I agree. I met with them, and it's just an amazing. Oh, sorry. It's again, it's the amazing group of volunteers we have here from every walk of life, and they freely bring this experience to the community. So, a lot of them were through CSVP, also, just another plus. So.
All right. Thanks again, Nance. All right. Now can I go on to item 9? Yes. Thank you. This is for any commissioner comments or special event announcements. Anybody have anything? All right, well, I hate dead air, so I'm going to say a couple of things then. Even though the physical Canal Connection Resource Center was dismantled, the spirit of CCRC lives on. City Council has established a physical presence to have a person and place where community questions can be pursued. Sherry Smith will be available at the City Hall Reception Center to answer questions and help Caneo citizens learn how the CCRC database can help find them answers for themselves on issues affecting them. She will be there during City Hall hours. She can be contacted at 449-2251. I do hope at a future meeting that she will be able to introduce herself and expand upon these capabilities and things she's doing, and maybe by that time she'll what she has learned in utilizing our database, as well as how it can help in the future. So please, remember, CCRC is still a presence among us. It's still available. Francine will find a way to get you in contact with Sherry. Again, the number is 449-2251, and she's located at the reception up on a floor above us, in the lobby. Second floor. Yeah, so it's a lower lobby, excuse me. All right. Always remember to buy local. All right. That's what helps, keeps things going around here. Buy local, please. And as said so nicely stated by Jim, volunteering, it does a mind and body good. Keep that in mind, because it does help in many ways. As far as next month's meeting, it was brought up that it's going to be entitled Senior Housing Market Issues and Concerns, presented by the Community Outreach Committee of the Caneo, Simi, Moore Park Association of Realtors. Will be conducted by Don Phillips, a good friend of ours to the Council on Aging. So appreciate folks coming here, as well as being available over the television. All right. That didn't generate any other ideas or thoughts or brickbats or anything? All right. Who did what to whom?
Amgen
oh.
California. May 18th.
All right. Amgen tour. You'll probably get run over if you don't know about it by now, but May 17th.
18th.
That better. That's probably better. All right, the 18th. Oh, God. All right. All right, I'm going to change or hand the meeting over to Nick now to introduce our speakers. Nick?
Thank you, Dave. It's my pleasure to introduce our speakers today. Today we have a tag team consisting of Amy Gus of 805 Aging, Nancy Lee Ma of Crystal Clear Profits, Tammy Podell of Assisted Living Connections, and Kalila Heller, also of Assisted Living Connections. And they're going to talk to us on the topic of financial exploitation of our aging population. With that, I'll turn the meeting over to Amy.
Good afternoon. My name is Amy Gus, and I...
A little closer to the mic, I think, if you can.
Is it better? Yeah. Is this okay, Francie? How about if I start that over? Good afternoon. My name is Amy Gus, and I am a geriatric care manager with 805 Aging, specializing here in the Caneo Valley. I am presenting to you today with Nancy Ma, a certified public accountant, Tammy Podell and Kalila Heller, elder care advisors from Assisted Living Connections. We'd like to take this opportunity to educate the community on the prevalence and risks of financial abuse and provide resources to help seniors protect themselves from these dangers. It's highly documented that our society is aging. The older population, those 65 and older, numbered 39.6 million in 2009. They represented 12.9% of the U.S. population, roughly about 1 in every 8 Americans. By 2030, there will be about 72.1 million older persons, more than twice their number in 2000. People 65 and older represented 12.4% of the population in the year 2000, but are expected to grow to 19% of the population by 2030. With our growing aging population comes growing opportunities. Seniors living later in life have the opportunity to lead longer, more vibrant lives, may include world travel, time spent with grandchildren, possibly great-grandchildren, and as we've just recently discussed, even giving back to our local community. However, with these positives come some very unfortunate negatives, especially as it relates to money. As communication and banking become more digital and less personal, the opportunity for criminals and unethical service providers to defraud, manipulate, and scam our older adult population has seen a sharp increase. Before I break down some major categories of financial fraud, I'd like to paint one simple scenario on how an incident of fraud might present itself. As a geriatric care manager, I offer a client-centered approach to caring for older adults facing ongoing challenges. A client was recently referred to me in need of assistance after being victimized. I'd like to tell you a little bit about my client, Margaret. Margaret, 72 years old and recently widowed. In addition to grieving the loss of her husband of 50 years, she's now faced with all of the business of settling his affairs, as well as running her household alone for the very first time. She's realizing that the partnership she and her husband had for 5 decades consisted of a true division of household responsibilities. While Margaret tended to the domestic side of their affairs, her husband Bob handled all financial and business matters. Margaret soon realized she hadn't paid bills, managed their investments, or even cut a check in almost 50 years. She was alone and overwhelmed and graciously and willingly accepted the help of a trusted friend to help her manage her financial affairs. Seeing as how Margaret didn't have a solid understanding of her financial portfolio and was not aware of her monthly costs, it was all too easy for this friend to start to begin to siphon away funds. And with no checks and balances in place, Margaret's entire financial nest egg disappeared right before her very eyes. And then the friend disappeared too. The sad reality is that Margaret is now faced with the added stress of mourning the loss of her husband while scrambling to figure out how she is going to enjoy the golden years. The very golden years she was supposed to enjoy before her investments were stolen through unauthorized credit card charges, falsified checks, and downright stealing. It's a tragic story that is being repeated on a daily basis here in the Conejo and throughout the country. Saddest of all, these criminals are rarely caught, leaving them free to strike again and again. Commonly reported types of abuse are physical and verbal. However, financial abuse is on the rise. Financial abuse, in fact, accounts for up to 1/2 of all types of elder abuse in the United States, totaling more than 500,000 cases annually, with an estimated financial loss of over $3 billion a year. Fiduciary abuse is defined as the illegal or improper use of an elder's funds, property, or assets. Commonly seen categories of financial fraud include identity theft, investment fraud, mortgage and lending fraud, mass marketing and other fraud, including those infamous sweepstakes and foreign lotteries. The elderly are a high target population for a handful of reasons. They depend on family and friends for their care. They can be physically or cognitively impaired. They may be grieving the loss of the loved one, as in the case of Margaret. Or they are near retirees who are open to suggestions on ways to manage their funds. Either way, seniors tend to have money and are more susceptible to fraud than the general population. There are significant repercussions to fraud. The abuse leaves the victim not only financially devastated, but emotionally deceived. Fraud crime is a personal violation. Your trust in your own judgment and your trust in others is often shattered. You may feel a sense of betrayal, especially if the perpetrator is someone you know. Again, as in the case of Margaret. You may have hesitated to tell family members, friends, or colleagues about your victimization for fear of criticism. If they then were exploited by the same fraud, you might feel guilty and suffer a sense of isolation. Fraud crimes can destroy your financial security and sometimes that of your loved ones. If you are elderly, disabled, or on a fixed income, and you lack opportunities to recover your losses, you may face additional trauma, even the loss of your independence. And let us not forget the added costs of aging. In 2012, older consumers averaged an increase of 43% in out-of-pocket healthcare expenditures compared to 2002. Added health costs incurred on average by older consumers consists of insurance, medical services, drugs, and medical supplies. So it's so disheartening to think that senior fiduciary abuse can not only rob someone of their golden year dreams, but knowing that their physical and emotional well-being are also greatly at stake further emphasizes the risks and dangers of fraud. I'd like to turn the next portion of our presentation to Nancy Ma, who is going to discuss warning signs of abuse, as well as provide other valuable information. I will later conclude our group presentation with a list of resources to assist you if you feel you or someone you know has been a victim of financial abuse.
Thank you, Amy. As Amy mentioned, I'm a CPA who practices in Ventura County, and over the past 25 years, I've had the opportunity to work with many baby boomers. And within the past couple of years, as my clients' health began to decline or their spouses passed away, it became more apparent to me that I needed to bring awareness to families who could potentially suffer a financial loss. Most people would recognize financial elder abuse as taking money or their possessions, but you ask, how can this happen? Well, the signs start out as minor misappropriations, but can easily escalate to a substantial loss when the perpetrator knows that the finances are not being carefully watched. I'd like to share a story with you about what happened to me and a client of mine. And had I known this information before it happened, I could have been on the heightened alert or been able to identify and detect the abuse before it happened in a shorter period of time, or maybe even could have prevented it. My client had just started receiving 24-hour in-home care from a caregiving agency. The client's daughters lived far away, and they wanted someone in the house to help take care of her. So my client had recently fallen and needed assistance with wound care, but she was still cognitively aware. I was managing my client's finances at the time, but continued to leave the checkbooks in her possession so that she could write her own checks and maintain a sense of independence. I also left her with her debit cards and credit cards so that the caregivers could purchase any necessities for the client. Within a few months, the weekend caregiver started purchasing things on credit cards that were not items that my client would normally have purchased, and shopped at stores where my client never frequented. The caregiver was driving my client to wherever the caregiver wanted to shop and having my client pay for the expenses. The caregiver even went so far as to order 2 annual passes online at Universal Studios, and mind you, my client was 90 years old at the time. After a few months, I inquired with the weekday caregiver, where were the bank statements? And she would tell me, I left them in the box where you instructed me to leave them. I even brought the expenses, the excess spending of the credit card charges to the case manager at the agency, but she never did anything further when we questioned the charges. I finally went online to download the bank statements and found that the weekend caregiver had withdrawn over $15,000 from her savings account over the course of a 3-month period by taking my client to the bank to withdraw the funds using her ATM card. So I then took my client and the weekday caregiver with me to the bank to speak to the bank manager and had them place the account on hold until they could retrieve the camera footage, which was later used to convict the caregiver. The bank assisted us in calling the police and brought a detective on the case immediately, and the detective then sent the case to the district attorney's office. After several months of gathering this evidence and countless hours of communication between the bank, the caregiving agency, the Thousand Oaks Police Department, and the district attorney's office, we managed to recover a portion of the funds from the bank, and the client was reimbursed for the additional costs of the accounting, but the credit card expenses were never recovered. The case took over 2 years to prosecute the caregiver and was finally brought to trial in 2013. It was not until later in the discovery of this case that we found out that the case manager was related to the caregiver. As Amy mentioned, this is an increasing problem, and many times family members don't know who to turn to or how to go about reporting it. Having been practicing a CPA for many years, I realized that I had never been trained nor alerted to signs of financial elder abuse. I consider myself very diligent and attentive and want to emphasize to the community that these criminal acts happen every day right under our nose. Most often, but not always, the abuse happens because the elderly person doesn't have family who's close by, or more often they're looking for companionship. But it's also a difficult decision on when a family member should step in to help take care of the finances. As a trusted financial advisor, as soon as I see signs of my client's need for assistance, I begin to inquire about family members and who they have selected as their trustee or executor. If they live nearby, I ask to meet them so I can assist them in that transition of the financial care. Unfortunately, not all professionals take that responsibility, and not all family members can be trusted or have been selected as a trustee. So who are these perpetrators? As I mentioned, caregivers, but also family members are also prevalent. As I spoke to the DA's office to find out who are these perpetrators. And other perpetrators could be people who profess to be in love with this elderly person, or unscrupulous business people who may have overcharged for their services or products. Some of the more common ways that the abuse occurs, as I mentioned in my story, is through credit cards or withdrawing cash. But there's additional financial abuse that occurs when a person forges their signature on a credit card, having them sign documents that the elderly person doesn't really understand through deception, or refinancing the elderly person's home or transferring a deed into another family member's home, into another family member's name. Another common area is telemarketers supposedly posing as charitable organizations, and also caregivers sometimes let the elderly person know about their hardships and ask to borrow money. Some of the common indicators of financial abuse are unexplained withdrawals on bank accounts, expenses that are out of the ordinary for this person's personal shopping habits, bank statements that no longer come to the home, or newfound friends, or suspicious signatures on checks, or even missing checks altogether. So what do you do if you suspect financial abuse? Contact the bank immediately where the elderly person has their bank accounts and freeze them. And then if you can get assistance, sometimes the banks will step in and help you contact the police department, and then they will in turn turn that over to the district attorney's office if they feel that this is a case that is prosecutable. But you can always communicate with the various different agencies, and Amy will be providing numbers in case you do need references for contacting people. And most importantly, do not let the perpetrator know that you suspect the financial abuse, since that gives them time to cover up their evidence. So at some point, if you've come to have family unable to take care of you, or you live far away from them, and the adult children feel like they need more oversight and care, there are other options which Kalila and Tammy can speak about.
Good afternoon. I'm Tammy Podell.
And I'm Kalila Heller.
We offer a free service to help families find the best choices in assisted living. When your loved one becomes a victim of the kind of financial and emotional abuse that Amy and Nancy have just discussed, what are your options? If you can't be there 24 hours a day, what do you do next? Our specialty is an in-depth knowledge of the broad array of available senior living options.
So, why don't you walk around over here? So I'm going to start with my personal connection to financial elder abuse through my mom. I took care of my mom after she broke her hip when she was 73, and then 6 months later she had a massive stroke. And so she was able to recover from that physically. Everyone would think she's totally normal. She could still drive. She lived in Leisure Village in Camarillo and participated in lots of activities. But she had progressive memory loss and a decrease in ability to exercise judgment. So Mom became obsessed with winning sweepstakes. And she responded to all those myriad offers you get in the mail. So as a result of that, and she started getting phone calls. So she gave her checking account number to a scammer who was posing as a local newspaper. And then she gave her credit card number to another scammer posing as the phone service provider. I found out about that. And so what I did is I closed Mom's bank accounts, I changed her phone number, and I stopped her mail for a time, and I sent it to a P.O. box where I'd pick it up and go through it. So I was doing my best at the time, because I wasn't really that educated about what to do about senior financial abuse, but to protect her and to help keep her independent living in Leisure Village. So she got a new phone number, but she continued to respond to offers. So another scammer got her number, and he started calling her regularly from Jamaica, telling her she'd won the sweepstakes. And he became her best friend. Mr. O'Reilly from the Better Business Bureau in Jamaica with a Jamaican accent and a Jamaican phone number, and she told him all about her daughters and our kids and what we did for a living and where we lived. But she didn't tell me about her new best friend and all those phone calls. She did follow his instructions, and she found a way to get cash. I had forgotten to take her IRA investment checkbooks out of the house. I mean, my mom was really financially savvy. She saved enough money to retire fully at 62, and I just couldn't even believe she would ever use those or even think of it. So she took those, and he told her she won the sweepstakes. She took that checkbook, and she at first wrote him a $500 check. Well, actually wrote a check to the bank, cashed it, then wired the cash through Western Union to Jamaica. And she did this several times. So finally, when he asked her for $3,500, she finally told me that she thought she'd made a mistake. She showed me the Western Union receipts, and I was able to stop it by, again, changing her phone number and, of course, taking away the IRA investment book. He ended up taking her for about $3,000. I mean, thank God it was at least she told me, because it could have gone on and on. So we're telling you these stories that Nancy and Amy and I have told you just to alert you to be vigilant and to take action and protect your loved ones and friends, because it's really hard. I mean, everyone wants to stay independent and have freedom and power in their world and still be able to use their checkbooks and credit cards. And we need to protect them at the same time, especially if there's some cognitive decline, like with my mom. What happened with my mom is she became a little more declined, a little lonelier and confused. And when she couldn't drive anymore, she decided that she wanted to move to assisted living. She was very social, and she'd been to some lovely communities in the area. So Tammy helped her, and we showed her different communities in the area. And she ended up moving in to an assisted living community and is really happy in her new home. And it's much easier for my sister and I to keep track of her spending, since it's all, she has, everything is covered in the community. And now she's on a cash basis for her incidentals, although she continues to protest that I won't give her the checks and credit cards back. But the really wonderful end of this story is 6 months after she moved in, she met a man and fell in love. And a year later, I moved him into the same apartment in the assisted living community together. So we're going to have Tammy's going to talk a little bit more about the protection that a community like that can offer.
Senior and assisted living communities can be a good, viable option to check into when you are looking for a relatively economical way to make sure that a loved one is safe, that they are well cared for, they are comfortable, and as involved in life as possible. An assisted living community provides a safety net, the person surrounded by caring people watching out for them, and there's often even healthcare professionals that are on staff. The community will keep the residents active and involved in life with structured, appropriate activities as a way to keep them positively directed and not involved with scams, as happened with Kalila's mother. We don't want to paint an overly rosy picture. It's not easy to make that move, which is why it's good to use a local services to help. But assisted living offers a safer option with a reduced potential for financial and other kinds of abuse. It is a more economical way to stay, economical than staying at home with a caregiver. It includes everything. It includes all meals, all activities, housekeeping, oftentimes laundry. There's 24-hour help available for all activities of daily living. And it offers more outings, more involvement, more activities and engagement so that an elderly person won't be isolating themselves, which is where oftentimes the problems are involved. And it helps with that they offer transportation to doctor's appointments and errands, which is so important because oftentimes it's a family member that would otherwise be doing all of this. And so it frees that family member up so that they have time to watch out for the person's finances. Senior living options would include independent senior living, assisted living, board and care homes, and memory and Alzheimer care centers.
Okay, and the final piece that we wanted to address here was, often when a senior is needing more assistance, the first option is going to be hiring an in-home caregiver. And usually this can work really well. But as you can see from Nancy's story, there can be a problem even with a licensed agency, who we always recommend people use licensed agencies. So there's all sorts of potentials for abuse, especially if people aren't using a licensed agency and if they don't know how to check a person out properly. However, so there's no guarantees, because you can have this kind of abuse in an assisted living community as well, if anybody has access to a phone. So it just goes to, no matter what choice you select, it's critically important to have a responsible adult child or perhaps a geriatric care manager to oversee. So Amy's going to complete our presentation with some resources.
Although we've only just touched on some of the various types of fraud, we presented you with real-life stories on how elder abuse can play out. Our hope in this presentation is to educate you and make our community better aware of the prevalence of fiduciary abuse. We've touched on 2 of many possible options to help care for your aging loved one and help oversee their well-being and potentially protect them from these risks. In-home care, as we discussed, or possibly moving to a senior living community are 2 options to consider. We would like you to walk away with an understanding of other available resources. Care managers, for example, work with families and provide assessment and monitoring, problem solving, education, and advocacy to help alleviate caregiver stress. In-home care agencies that are licensed and bonded provide an element of protection. However, if an older adult or a family member is opposed to using the services of an agency, it is strongly recommended that one perform a thorough background check for each candidate. Ask for 3 references. Ask to see photo identification. Record the candidate's full name, date of birth, address, phone number, and even their social security number. Have them sign a waiver of confidentiality. For more information on conducting background checks, one can visit caregiver.org. Each one of us has a responsibility to keep vulnerable elders safe from harm. If you have been the victim of exploitation, you are not alone. Many people care and can help. Please tell your doctor, a friend, a family member you trust. Call the Adult Protective Services. Our local APS number is 805-654-3200. Relay your concerns to the Adult Protective Services, Long-Term Care Ombudsman, or the police. The phone number for our local Long-Term Care Ombudsman office is 805-656-1986. You can reach the Thousand Oaks Police Department at 805-494-8200. Even if you feel the danger is not immediate, but you suspect that abuse has occurred or is occurring, please tell someone. You can reach the Elder Care Locator. It's a public service of the U.S. Administration on Aging by telephone at 1-800-677-1116. Specially trained operators will refer you to a local agency that can help. The Elder Care Locator is open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. To conclude our presentation, we want to stress that financial abuse among seniors is on the rise. Fiduciary abuse not only robs one of his or her money, but his or her sense of security as well. Please take some time to educate yourselves on various popular scams that perpetrators use to target and hone in on our elderly. And of course, live by the old adage, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Amy.
Anything to say? No. Any questions from the dais? I got a couple maybe here. Initially you mentioned how just going to the bank and alerting them. Yes. I think that was Nance. Yeah. And you talked about going to the bank.
Yes.
But trying to do it surreptitiously from the standpoint of not alerting the perpetrator or potential.
Right.
Why didn't you go to the ADF, sort of like it was mentioned at the latter part of our speeches here?
You mean to the Adult Protective Services?
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know. This is why it became apparent to me. I need to get people out there to know. I had no idea. We, as most common people, do not think like a criminal. So we are not thinking about all of these different things that are happening. And so my first response was to go to the bank and say, hey, you know what, we need to find out who's taking this money out of the bank. And then luckily, the branch that my client frequented is one that had several cases of elder care abuse happen. So she immediately knew. She was in contact with a detective, so she said, I know exactly who I can call, and we'll get this case moving forward.
All right.
So, yeah.
All right. Also, how do you introduce the idea of power of attorney to an elder to avoid so that you can legitimately take over the accounts? How?
Right. It's a matter of it's over a course of time. And generally, I have to talk to my clients because the minute I see something happening, like just this past tax season for me, I had a couple clients, their spouses passed away, and the spouse used to be the one to take care of the finances. So I'll go in and say, well, I see that you need help. I said, how would you feel about doing this? You know, we don't have to do all of it, but one of the things that I generally like to have in place is make sure not a financial power of attorney, but a healthcare power of attorney. Because the healthcare power of attorney, that's where if they get into the hospital, then at least you can kick in that part. And then the other thing that I generally do is to ask to make sure that they have a living trust or a will set in place. Sometimes people don't think, oh, I did that living trust 25 years ago and I haven't touched it. It's time to update it because as things change in your life and even your adult children, you may not want them to be managing your finances. It's time to update that trust. So it's a gradual thing. And so when you do need to get that power of attorney, you have to let the elder person know that there are certain things that you're concerned about that they're not doing that a normal person would use different kind of judgment in. So you kind of like say and gradually do it that way.
Okay.
Any
Amy,
questions?
Kalaya, Tina, have any other observations along that power of attorney aspect?
I think to just build on what Nancy's point is, which is a struggle we all face in caring either for our aging relatives or caring for our aging clients, it's a fine dance of wanting to respect one's independence. And so unfortunately, there are so many facets of fiduciary abuse that we certainly could have addressed, and we could spend a whole half hour just on power of attorney alone. So we wanted to make this more of a broad overview. So I apologize that we didn't get into the specifics of power of attorney in the presentation. But along those lines, as a professional, yes, it's the fine dance of respecting one's independence, but also of expressing concern and wanting to safeguard not only their health and well-being, but their finances and their future security. So we often, and you know, power of attorney is something that can clearly be put into place and definitely should be put into place when one is cognitively aware and highly alert. You know, just you find a trusted individual who you don't want to wait until you see the signs and risk factors of dementia or decline, because that person needs to make a cognitively sound decision on who they are appointing to cover their financial and healthcare issues. So it should be considered, it should be discussed about, and most importantly, that decision should, especially in terms of finances, that decision to who you appoint should be a very trusted and somebody you have a lot of faith in, whether it is a family member or a financial advisor, somebody that you have faith in and know that their background history, and know that it's also revocable. You can change that at any time.
Amy, while you're up there, the that website for the the U.S. sponsored
Oh,
elder
well,
care?
I had a phone number, if you don't mind that I look through my. And the reason I gave out a national, the elder care locator,
Elder
is
care.
that what? This is a public service of the U.S. Administration on Aging. The reason why I have included this in the presentation is because, yes, we're TOTV, but we could have family members who live across the country, or we could have adult children here whose parents live elsewhere. So the national number is 1-800-677-1116. And that public service agency can help you find resources in one's local community.
Yeah. Should we let her? Go ahead, Nance. Thank you.
This is probably for Nancy, but anybody. As an ombudsman for 6 years, truly the only real financial abuse that I have seen and worked with Adult Protective Services on these cases were people whose own family members had taken their money over a period of time. And I have two now that had to be, a place was found for them by Adult Protective Services when they totally ran out of money. Do you guys see that issue of family members using?
Well, you want to share the
and
quote
how do
you
you
just learned
that's
today?
harder. I mean, that's even, how do you deal with it? Because they don't want to turn off their family. They don't want to.
Well, and just this morning, I had followed up. I called the district attorney's office this morning to follow up because I wanted to see if I could get some statistics about the number of cases in the Ventura County area. And she said to me, well, we only get the most severe cases and only the ones that are prosecutable. She said all of the financial elder abuse usually gets reported to the local police departments. And she said most of them are with family members, and so they don't do anything about it. So, yes, there are. And I think every one of us has probably had that in some situation or another. We just don't, it wasn't a huge amount. And so we just say, oh, well, Mom and Dad gave it to so-and-so, and I'm not going to worry about it. But, yes, it does happen a lot to family members. And she said that's the number one, they're the number one perpetrators. So,
Well, Nancy, while you're
Yes.
up there, I mean, should a person contact their local police department or go to Adult Protective Services?
we go to the police department first because they're the ones that have to report the case. The Adult Protective Services is there to put that person, to protect them in the, like if they're continue to financially abuse them or other cases, that's when the Adult Protective Services comes in. But you have to at least report the case first before the Adult Protective Services would even step in to do anything.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Any other question?
Anything else?
Okay. Okay.
I was concerned about how your mother was lost when her husband died. And there are two documents I would recommend people have. One is called the Letter of Instructions. In it, you list all your accounts, your bank account, brokerage accounts, property you may own, safe deposit box. Where is it? Where are the keys? What's in it? When you're not around to answer questions, these are questions people want answers to. And the other thing you should have is what I call a bill-paying schedule. It lists all the bills that are to come up. Some are paid once a year, some are twice a year, some are every single month. How much are those bills? How do you pay them? Do you pay them by check? Do you pay them by online transfer of money? Is it automatically deducted from your checking account? So they know what's going to happen every single month that comes in. And if some bill shows up that's not on the list, look at it pretty carefully.
Yeah.
Just a little advice.
Right.
It takes a while to prepare it, but it's worth having.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I generally, when I'm speaking with my clients, I make sure that they have a living trust in place, because that living trust has all of that information in it. It has the power of attorneys for health care. and it has the instructions of who's going to take over in the event that when you pass away and stuff.
Yeah, but the person who takes over, unless he has that list, doesn't know what he's taking over.
Right, but and most of the time you are supposed to tell your trustee, the one that you're selecting as the trustee, to give them a copy of the living trust.
That's right.
So
But you don't often do that. And
Yes.
it changes every few months.
Right.
You have to keep it up to date.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for stimulating us.
Yeah.
All right. Nothing else? All right. I'm going to try to go through some quick reminders here. Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thanks for being here with us. Thank you. Let's see. All right. We talked about next month. It's going to be about the senior housing market. That's going to be our program for next month. We've got a transit training meeting that's coming up. See, the 21st of the month. That would certainly like to have folks be able to explore the possibilities of using public transit to get around, whether they need to or not. Do want to remind you that the Canal Connection is alive, not only in spirit but in person. So please, we certainly want you to use the website, and that's being improved on a daily basis. But we also have a young lady now at City Hall, the reception, who is going to be there to help people who don't feel comfortable with the computer or want a little bit different approach. Please contact Sherry at 449-2251. Is there anything else? I'm not repeating myself, but I am. Remember, buy local. It helps all of us in some fashion. Volunteering. Oh, the vision. Yeah, that's what I forgot. Thank you, Loretta. Yeah, this is well, you can't see it anyhow. All right. It's too light. But the idea is that the next vision meeting is going to be the 3rd of June. 3rd of June. And try to attend one of the 5 different locales and look up on the website to find out one that really has an interest to you, okay? Did want to send out our best to Gene Borghi, former member here, and Len Loomis. Be strong, brothers. All right, excuse me, the meeting is now adjourned.